In September 2010, a Reddit user with the handle "I wish I was a me" posted on the r/gaming subreddit, simply asking for mod suggestions for the game Oblivion. The replies seemed typical at first, players recommending popular mods to enhance their experience. That is, until a user known as Yay Video Games entered the conversation with a comment that immediately caught people off guard. His first message mentioned the uninstall button and something about the game being great, but warned about how difficult it was to remove all the leftover files from your system. It sounded clumsy and oddly worded, leaving many puzzled about what he was trying to say. When questioned, Yay Video Games responded again, this time rambling about Ubisoft goes Steamwork bye-bye always on DRM. But the sentence seemed jumbled, fragmented, even less clear than before. Things took an even stranger turn when he started repeating that bizarre phrase over and over in the thread. But it wasn't just the words themselves. Each reply came styled in different ways, some in bold, some italicized, others using all caps or camel case formatting. This wasn't simple copy-pasting. It looked like a deliberate pattern or code. Alongside these cryptic comments, he linked some unsettling images. One showed an almost blank white surface covered entirely with his strange catchphrase scrawled endlessly across it. Over time, Yay Video Games flooded the subreddit with nearly 4,000 strange posts. Eventually, moderators banned him, but the damage was done. People were left scratching their heads. Was this a sophisticated trolling campaign? Some suspected a bot gone haywire. Others felt there was something more to the story, something no one could quite put their finger on. Then, seemingly abruptly, he deleted his entire account and vanished from Reddit. Curiosity about the mystery didn't die down. A Reddit user, going by SoLegitHS, took it upon himself to investigate. Expecting to uncover an elaborate alternate reality game, or ARG, a common internet phenomenon, he instead discovered a far more heartbreaking truth. After digging through every post and finding similar strange activity across Reddit, he traced 3 other accounts strongly linked to Yay Video Games. Usernames like No Substance Here, Vinyl Record, and Not Sure How Big You Are popped up, all connected by patterns in writing and posting habits. Digging into Not Sure How Big You Are, which seemed to be the main account, revealed a heartbreaking glimpse into a very different story. This user's posts shared pieces of his life marked by chronic pain and suffering. Long threads revealed battles with severe illness that caused constant agony. The heavy medications prescribed to manage the pain took a toll on his mental health, triggering manic episodes such as the one that manifested in those bizarre, repetitive Reddit comments. What many initially saw as trolling or nonsense was actually a cry for help, disguised beneath layers of confusion and despair. Tragically, by early 2015, the weight of his physical and emotional suffering became unbearable. He chose to end his own life, escaping from a pain no words could sufficiently express. This unsettling tale reminds us how the internet sometimes becomes a silent stage for people fighting invisible battles. To casual observers, a flood of strange comments might seem meaningless or annoying. But behind those odd words lies a human story filled with loneliness, mental struggle, and the desperate attempt to be noticed. The story of Yay Video Games isn't just one more internet mystery or weird anomaly. It's a window into the complexity of human pain and the sometimes invisible ways it can reach out in the digital world before it's too late to help. I remember hearing whispers about a creepy phenomenon people called the Scarlet Window. Folks online talked about it like it was more than just a software bug. It felt like the digital version of a curse. The legend described a random pop-up that would show up on your screen, blocking everything else out. No matter how many times you tried to close it, it would linger, almost like it was alive. This particular tale got really weird. The pop-up, all red and glaring, would flash a question in another language. Sometimes the words made no sense, other times they'd be garbled fragments like, "Are you ready?" Behind the question, a distorted robotic voice would echo the message. If you kept trying to click away, the message slowly finished forming. Do you like the Scarlet Window? Once that final question appeared, the legend said the whole screen would turn black for a moment, giving just enough time for your mind to race. When the video returned, now everything was drenched in red, with ghostly names scrolling behind the message. The names, some claimed, belonged to previous victims of the Scarlet Window. It didn't matter where you were, at home, at a library, on your phone. The myth suggested that once you saw the pop-up, it was the beginning of the end. Some stories got very dark, saying the victim would feel an unsettling presence around them, and in the worst retellings, they'd vanish or meet a gruesome fate soon after. Nobody really knows how this rumor started, but most people trace it back to a simple online game from the late 90s, often shared on Japanese websites. In the game, you'd guide a curious character through a maze of internet links, and if you clicked the wrong button, the Scarlet Window would appear, just like in the legend. Some said the game itself was cursed, blaming it for strange things happening offline, though most people saw it as just a spooky story. However, things took a turn when a crime, a few years after the game's release, became linked to this myth online. There was a report of two classmates involved in a tragic altercation. When investigators searched one teen's computer, they found several bookmarks for unsettling websites, including the Scarlet Window. Suddenly, internet forums were flooded with worried posts, treating the story as if it had jumped straight from pixels to real life. From that point on, the story of the Scarlet Window wasn't just an internet ghost story. It became a kind of digital urban legend, a tale parents warned their kids about, and a topic of debate whenever internet dangers came up. The pop-up was now thought of as a gateway to doom, not just to fictitious characters, but potentially to those sitting behind real computers. People started remixing the idea too. Instead of just haunted websites, some wrote tales about mysterious pop-ups that would appear while scrolling through social networks, or eerie voices speaking through headphones late at night. It's a story that never really disappeared. Every few years it comes back with a twist, each retelling making it just a little more unsettling. What fascinates me about the Scarlet Window is how it uses common technology, something as simple as a pop-up, to create an atmosphere of helplessness. You can be anywhere, doing anything, and suddenly you've triggered a curse by accident. That concept that nowhere is truly safe online makes the story linger in your mind long after you've logged off. Looking at the bigger picture, stories like the Scarlet Window echo across the internet, from quiet forums to larger social media threads. Sometimes these tales are just intended to give readers a scare. Other times, they take on a life of their own, leaving people to wonder if there's any truth behind the fiction. Even with countless stories already in circulation, it feels like we're only glimpsing the surface of the web's strangeness. Every day, more urban legends and strange accounts fade into the background, nearly lost to time. But every so often,
An anomaly resurfaces, just enough to remind us that the internet has a way of preserving its creepiest mysteries, letting them live on in pixels, rumors, and shared shivers.
Most people scrolling late at night run into odd things online, but nothing stuck with me quite like the old Crimson Aurora capes. According to certain corners of the web, these blurry films claim to show the first secret landing on Mars. Not some distant future discovery, but an event that supposedly happened decades before anyone announced real missions to the public. I first saw the video pop up on a forgotten internet forum, uploaded by someone using the alias Orion Watcher. The post insisted this was confidential footage that somehow escaped government eyes. The opening was strange, a silent blue screen covered in warnings, like those old-school tapes that tell you for authorized eyes only. Then, everything jumped into shaky camera shots. No clear faces, mostly shadows in bulky suits, moving slowly with Mars's rust-red landscape in the background. The story making the rounds was that an agency, never called NASA but always hinted at, secretly sent people to Mars in the early 1970s. They were allegedly tasked with not only landing there, but also making contact with non-human life. The twist? According to believers, the public never found out because whoever ran the mission hid everything under thick layers of secrecy, faked photos, and cover stories about tech tests and weather balloons. The film itself barely lasts more than a few minutes. Most of it is too dark and wobbly to make anything out. At some point, a distant figure waves while standing under a faded, foreign-looking flag. Static lines crackle through the image, and there's a brief glimpse of what looks like a gloved hand touching red dust. No narration, no dramatic music, just the feeling that, if it were real, someone was someplace they definitely weren't supposed to be. Skeptics have picked it apart over the years. I read a theory that the tape was the product of a prankster known for making cheap science fiction films and dressing them up as lost government projects. Another rumor pointed to an editing group that specialized in turning old space photos into mockumentary clips. Some even said the landscape in the recording looked suspiciously like volcanic fields in Iceland, filmed through a red-tinted lens. None of that stopped fans of the mystery from arguing over every glitch and shape in the footage. There were endless debates about the real aim behind those missions. Was it a search for new worlds, a meeting with unknown species, or just a well-orchestrated hoax built to spark debates and keep people wondering? One of the video's earliest supporters, an uploader who called himself Captain Nighthawk, had a long history of strange and sometimes outlandish channel uploads. His most watched clip, years before this Mars tale showed up, was a so-called moon exploration, where an astronaut discovers an odd, pulsing artifact buried in the lunar soil. It looked pretty convincing at first glance, though someone eventually tracked down the footage to a low-budget film festival from the early 2000s. Even so, every time someone debunked one of his uploads, new theories would pop up in the comments, each more committed to the idea that something was being hidden from us. What makes these anomalies so captivating, in my opinion, isn't the possibility that they're genuine secrets. It's the mix of blurry evidence, unanswered questions, and the thrill of thinking, just maybe, the world is stranger than it seems. Digging deeper, I talked to a few friends who remembered seeing the Crimson Aurora tape years before it reappeared. Their memories lined up. A chill ran down your spine watching it, but there was always a sense that you were being fooled. The details change, the story twists back on itself, but the core remains the same.
Humans on Mars before anyone said it was possible, making deals we'll never hear about. It fascinates me how strong the belief stays for some people, even after every questionable cut and recycled background is pointed out. There's always someone claiming, "I know a guy who saw the original transmission," or "My uncle used to work in the archives and told me there's more than they let on." These comments build a myth around the video that won't go away, even when the facts don't line up. Every so often, a new version circulates, complete with updated graphics and a narrator hinting at a broader cover-up. The latest rumor is that these tapes were engineered using a mix of public domain Mars photos and basic digital effects, stitched together by fans of conspiracy stories. Allegedly, there's a small online club dedicated to releasing fresh, leaked content every few months just to keep the discussion alive. What keeps this story from fading out, at least for me, has nothing to do with the arguments for or against its truth. It's the collective effort, the way strangers around the globe build and expand the legend, each adding a tiny piece to the puzzle. There's creativity in how these tales grow. They borrow details from old government reports, obscure space missions, and photos of rocky deserts that could almost, just almost, pass for Martian soil. There's always a soft background hum of doubt in every corner of the web where this clip is discussed. Some users are convinced it's all smoke and mirrors, pointing out editing software artifacts and timeline mistakes. Others say that every destroyed theory is actually part of the cover-up, proof that there's a campaign to keep us in the dark. After watching the Crimson Aurora film a dozen more times, I've come to appreciate the legend more than the supposed evidence. It's a digital campfire story, one that gets shared, doubted, redone, and fiercely defended with each telling. You can try to break down every frame and explain each little trick, but the story keeps evolving as long as new people discover it. And that brings me to the oddest part. Some part of us wants these stories to be true, not for the proof, but for the possibility. The eerie charm isn't in believing we reached Mars under the radar. It's in the thought that, just out of sight, something unexpected is always waiting to be found. If you ask me, whether the Crimson Aurora landing ever happened is probably the least important thing. The power of internet anomalies lives in how they awaken our curious side, letting us wonder for a brief moment if the impossible is closer than we think.